Commissioner Limpaco will be coming. Commissioner Santos is excused, I think, or something. So, this is a meeting of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities for Guam Power Authority issues. For the record, those present are myself, Commissioner Sanchez, and Commissioner Martinez. And we're here for GPA, so Mr. Benventi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Testing. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to mention one thing from my GM report, and then from there, as we go to the issues for decision and issue for discussion. And the first one is that we have received the $15 million from the Cabrera State Fiscal Recovery Fund as committed by the governor. So the money is in GPA's account at this point. And again, the $15 million was to mitigate what would have been a huge LEAC increase beginning August 1st. It was transposed to a 3-step increase so that the ratepayer does not have to, does not suffer that huge jump from 11 cents to 17.1 cents on August 1st. And again, the PUC approved a 3-step process. The $15 million will cover the shortfall, the offset for that period of time that is below 17.1. So again, we'd like to, thank the governor for that $15 million as promised. And just to report to the board that it is in our bank account now, and again, this is a grant to the ratepayers. This is something that they don't have to pay back, and is only utilized to pay the LEAC portion, which is the ratepayers portion of the bill. It's not any part of our base rate. No?
Okay.
Okay. So that, Mr. Chair, is the first item I have. The next item is the GPA Resolution 2021-22, and again, this is relative to, it's a joint resolution with GWA, Resolution 25-FY 2021, and this is relative to requiring GPWA employees to be fully vaccinated against SARS, and again, we have a resolution before you that both GPA and GWA have put together. And, I understand that you may have discussed this at the GWA. And as far as GPA, well, again, the policy is really between, procedural due dates is between August 24th. Let's say that the CCU does approve it on August 24th. And again, implementation of no later than October 1st for the vaccination. Or if they don't become vaccinated, then they will have to submit to weekly testing. We do have some structure of the framework of the policy that we will implement. I'd just like to go briefly through that, and that will include, of course, having a form that the employees will sign that they either are vaccinated or not, and then for those that are, and we will use that now to determine which employees will have to go through the second option or so. The exemption from the vaccination and testing really depends on certain medical conditions or disability, and requires a medical note, similar to actually what we have today for people on sick leave or extended sick leave or so, or even leave sharing, if you will. And as far as employees taking the vaccination or the testing, really they have been doing it on annual leave or sick leave, no? We have not been granting administrative leave or had the need to do that. Administrative leave may be granted at the determination of the GM on a case-by-case basis, but again, that depends on what the case may be. A person doesn't have enough leave because of an extended sickness that he may have had through no fault of his own, and he has a difficulty for so-and-so. So again, these are things that as the process goes forward, is really determined on a case-by-case basis, no? Because there's going to be some particular cases that will need to be addressed. And then as far as disciplinary action, we have the GPA personal rules and regulations under the CTP, no? Although this misconduct is not specifically issues, there are some within that could be utilized to address the situation. And it's really determined on, again, a case-by-case basis. And furthermore, in our rules and regulations, there always has to be progressive discipline. And so that's how we will handle this on a regular basis. No? Okay. There are some differences between power and water's rules and regulations, as the Commission is aware. And of course, it's something that we'll have to work on to try and put together. Okay. However, there's one thing important to each of the organization is that the general manager really has been consistent in the implementation of discipline, and not all of a sudden fly off and dismiss people when really there's a progressive discipline way to do this, trying to work it out, and at the end, if they did it just for really insubordination or just doesn't, then the GM can take action to dismiss. No, so the process is like that, and that's why Miguel has his methods, or his consistent with probably how he has managed that organization. I have my way of how to have been consistent. And so even if it's challenge or anything, I have been consistent within that range. No?
Okay.
So that's the resolution, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put my side to this.
Commissioner Mchako.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. JB, what were the list of exemptions? Just underlying medical conditions, if they choose not
or
to?
disability that prevents them from having to do, for some reason, not able to come regularly get this test for various reasons. So it could be anything like that, but primarily medical exemption. For example, a person's doctor is saying this person maybe have some. I don't really want to get to
I guess
I have an example that is specific, but I don't really want to,
Yeah. Well, what I was getting
doctor has to provide the note. Now, similarly to the sick leave process, right? For you to take extended sick leave, the doctor has to give you that certification. If we feel that somehow that doesn't really, we're not quite acceptable of that, we can always have our own medical team make a second assessment just to make sure that everything is done prudently, right? And all of that. But that's the only exemption from what I understand.
So there's no exemption if someone has tested positive for COVID, has contracted it already, and potentially has the antigens to.
Yeah,
that would be similar to someone that got a vaccination, right?
Yeah, my apology. I see it here. And this is what this means. 14 days plus 90 days from onset of COVID-19 positive test results.
Okay, so
that's the other one.
So there is an exemption for those that have already tested positive as opposed to getting vaccinated.
That's correct. This is what this means, right?
Limited exemption. Okay. And then the whereas clause that starts on line 28, it says whereas the 18% of essential GPA personnel and 32% of essential GWA water and wastewater division personnel remain unvaccinated and pose a risk to system operation should COVID-19 outbreak occur within any section. What exactly is the risk as opposed to what is the percentage of risk that is posed by vaccinated people as opposed to unvaccinated? Because it's my understanding that vaccinated people can still contract and basically contaminate, have others contract it from them. So I don't understand how you can differentiate between those two.
Well, let me maybe start from the beginning of this COVID. No? There's no vaccination. No one really understands, or all we know is that this is happening in the world, it's happening here. So take guidelines that are provided for us, but more importantly, we also took additional steps to make sure that we protect our personnel. No? Most especially because if the group of operators or everything are all out, for the medical reasons, we can't run the power plant. So we looked at all kinds of contingency, including trying to isolate our team. We prepared building to house them. We did all of these different contingencies. So, and since day one, we implemented all kinds of, cleaning of the rooms, testing of everyone, doing all of this. So GPA in itself has gone to great lengths to ensure the safety of the employees and the public. No? I mean, we spared no expense to get all of these things to this point. So therefore, the vaccination came, right? So we did that. We encouraged all our employees to take the vaccination, right? And again, still voluntarily. No? So we're up to 85%. But again, even the ones that are 85% now, okay, seems to have been going well, but then all of a sudden we have a variant now that's, people still are trying to catch up with. So in a sense, if we as a utility go to great extent to protect each and every employee all the way through, then taking the additional step, we can't allow just a few to, without valid reasons, to not protect others. So any little prevention that we're doing, especially in a pandemic that we're not all, not everybody is so has the specific answer for, then we must take in my opinion, moving forward. So again, that's why we will continue to encourage. We will go through. I prefer to go through this process. It comes down to a few who at least we gotten that much more protected, based on what we know today, and then we will deal with the balance of on a case-by-case basis beyond that. So always trying to fairly take care of the employees themselves, who are valued to us.
So I commend GPA for all the efforts that they've taken to prevent, the employees from contracting it, right? I think the social distancing, the washing of the hands, all of those are proven to actually work, right? But the way the policy is written right now on any person that chooses not to get a vaccination has to test on a weekly basis in order to come into work. It doesn't make sense that you don't have vaccinated people do that because they contract it as well. So it doesn't make any sense to me the way that the current policy is being envisioned, and I don't see how it could have the effect that I think everybody is thinking that we would have by making it mandatory, and that rest of that 18% of the GPA personnel have chosen not to get a vaccination for one reason or the other. And so whether they foresee the risk as too great, because there are some side effects and a small percentage of people actually contract some serious health issues, right, by getting the vaccination. It's been documented. This is real data, although be it a small percentage of people, but they've chosen not to do it. So, if there was some real data behind the rationale behind getting unvaccinated people tested because they're the ones that pose the most risk, like as in your whereas clause here, and not accounting for the fact that you are not immune to contracting COVID if you're vaccinated, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay. I don't see how it can pose any more risk or any more risk than being vaccinated.
From my perspective, no, in charge of all these people on GPA, like I said, I try to do what I believe is best to minimize any exposure or thing that will create that. So, what are some of the other things that are coming out, no? And from my readings and all of that, the percentage of those vaccinated contracting it is much less than those that are not vaccinated.
I don't know.
No, let me, if
No,
I may.
I
if
want
may
you to finish. I want you to
yeah,
finish,
because
JP. I just want to ask you, where's the numbers?
No,
Where's those numbers?
No, take a read about and the other side of the coin, is that who really is who's the expert throughout the whole world is struggling with scenarios like this. So therefore, precaution is really, to me, the best prevention. That's all. So I mean, it's a policy goal, and if you don't think, but I'm just saying, I cannot sit here and not try to do the best that I can to protect all the employees of GPA, and sometimes they make the choose that they don't like the decision I make. However, my decision will be consistent and fair to make sure that the employees, in my mind, are best interests and the risks are minimized. No? So that's all. I mean, there is that. I succeed that there is that argument, but that's kind of where that's all.
Commissioner Sanchez, are you here?
I'm done.
Commissioner Sanchez.
So, I wrestle with this issue as well because I share a concern that Commissioner Limtiaco has that whether you're vaccinated or not, you can get COVID. So I used to favor the idea of only testing those that haven't been vaccinated. But what I'm reading is even if you're vaccinated, you can still get COVID. How you react to getting COVID appears to be mitigated if you're vaccinated versus non-vaccinated. But I don't believe just because you're vaccinated, you can't get COVID, right? So the issue that I wrestle with is, if we're only going to test non-vaccinated, we are ignoring the possibility that I believe exists from what I'm reading, that even if you're vaccinated, you can get it. So if we want to, so maybe the question, so as I wrestle with that, I'm going, maybe what we have to say is everyone is subject to testing. Maybe it's random, but I don't believe it's accurate to say that if you're vaccinated, you can't get COVID, therefore we don't need to test you. But if you're not vaccinated, we got to test you every week. And I thought Tuesday, and colleagues correct me if I'm wrong, we had tasked Miguel to get back with John because we also wanted to see what is the written policy, right? Because at least in board books, I noticed you were reading from something I'm not sure what it is.
It's a summary of.
Right, but I don't know. We're adopting a policy in the proposed resolution. The policy doesn't have the details other than broad whereases, and that we had asked Miguel to get with you. I thought that's what we did on Tuesday, just because we wanted to, before we passed the resolution, we wanted to see how management would implement this resolution, right? Yeah. Because there was some, reasonable debate, and people can disagree and do that. So, isn't that what we asked to do? So in fairness to John B.
I think we asked them to come up with their draft proposal.
Right, that's what and so maybe Miguel didn't get a chance to get to you, but and I don't think John, again, it's up, you've just articulated like how you see the policy. All we're asking is, can you write that down? Because eventually you got to show that to the employees. GWA has to show it to the members, the employees that are union members. So, we still have a process by which we want to inform our employees, whatever the decision is. And I got to believe it's more than what's in this resolution, because it's a lot more detailed, obviously, when you're dealing specifically with employees. Much more detailed than our resolution would be, but we would attach sort of the SOP for implementing this resolution. And I thought we had said Tuesday, Miguel, get with John, so we can see how GPA and GWA would implement this resolution, and we would look at that Tuesday. Did I
Yeah.
misunderstand that?
No, I think you're correct, Commissioner Sanchez. So, John, you don't have to go through it tonight.
No,
What
I
I
just
would
want to
recommend-
explain just one more step, Mr. Chair, and then I'll leave it alone. Again, I'd rather give you how we will implement it, and then we will establish the authority policy, instead of giving you a policy with all the details, which then approves the resolution that, and things change, no? And the discretion, and again, this is where I was mentioning earlier, there could be some differences between myself and GWA Miguel, no? So by doing this, then this is the guidelines that under the resolution, and it's basically trying to follow personnel rules and regulations within what we have done. Because although this COVID-19 is a big issue, it's really just a component in terms of disciplinary action and all of that. It's really just a component of what we do every day now. So that's all I'm trying to say, so that we don't have to give you a particular policy that we now have to keep changing. You know, it's really an operational policy that we've been. But detailing these guidelines as to why and what we would do if this and so on a high level, then I can provide that, and maybe we can provide both, so that we're guided by that and implementing that based on the service rules and regulations of Guam Waterworks and Guam Power Authority, because there are differences, no? At least in this point, and then that can work for us.
So, I mean,
Okay.
that's okay, but I mean, you're reading from a piece of paper that none of the five of us, I don't know what you're reading from. And at the end of the day, this resolution empowers management to develop a procedure, right? Consistent with existing HR, GovGuam, HR procedures, right? Yet recognizing the unique situation that we're in, right? So we had asked Miguel to get with you just so that to the degree it's common, because he said much of the same thing you said. It's still going to follow GovGuam rules and regs, but like he has to run it past the union because we have some employees at GWA that are members of the union, right? But we were hoping that there might be as much, even if it's two separate pieces of paper, even if they're completely different. This is the GPA policy.
I wanna just
We
put-
had at least asked, can we see what you're reading from? Miguel didn't have anything he was reading from, and we wanted to see that before we adopted the complete resolution, right? And then the only other question I have, we use the word essential personnel. Is the 18 and the 32 all personnel, or just certain?
It's a percentage of all
total
personnel,
personnel.
yeah.
So that's one thing, is drop essential and just say total. Is it 18% of total GPA personnel and 32% of total GWA? Because right now when you say essential, it begs the question, well,
It's a
are there
smaller-
non-essentials that aren't in the 32 or the 18? Or is this of total, right?
We have
Just
to
so we get it
define that.
accurate in the resolution, right?
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think we had tasked Miguel to get with you to flesh out in a little more detail, what that policy would be. And John, I mean, I think you make a good point. Maybe when we adopt this resolution on Tuesday, we don't necessarily say attached is the official final, you can't change it policy. We might just say management, proceed, but we will at least have on the record
The guidelines were.
the guidelines that Miguel wants for GWA, the guidelines that John B. wants for GPA, and we can look at it in case we want to give you feedback. But I would like you to think about, because it's made, as I listen to the debate nationally, locally, even in my own companies, right? I have wrestled with there's an assumption that you can only get it if you're not vaccinated, and therefore we're only going to test the non-vaccinated. When I'm with Commissioner Limtiakov, I think I understood him correctly. I agree that you can get it even if you're vaccinated. So why are we only testing non-vaccinated? The idea is, if anyone catches COVID in our organization, we want to know about it and isolate immediately. And that could include people that have already been vaccinated. So maybe you need to revisit it. Maybe you've got to do random. I don't know. And it opens up a different thought process. But I think you need to think about it. And we have this month, and we even meet next month. We have a little time to flesh out, get some feedback from us. If we could at least get a feel for your approach, in some summary fashion that you think you want for GPA, and Miguel can do his for GWA, and maybe they're similar, maybe they're not. We leave that up to you two. But I think we had asked that come Tuesday, show us a little bit more of what exactly if this resolution passes by the CCU, how is management thinking of implementing, right? In case we have questions or it's not reflective of the policy that we ultimately want to handle. Because there was one other issue is, if Simon doesn't follow your orders to get vaccinated and says, I don't even want to get tested, right? As I understand Gov Guam, you can go all the way down to insubordination, could lead to termination, right? Is that going to be the policy if an individual for personal reasons says, I don't want to take that shot? Are you going to suspend? Are you going to terminate? Because at that point, I don't know how you can make a judgment call. Either they got vaccinated or they didn't get vaccinated. Either they get suspended without pay or terminated, or they don't. And my thought was that no one should get terminated by refusing to be vaccinated, if that's their personal belief. But suspension without pay at least makes them make a trade-off. Okay, I'm not getting vaccinated, but because I'm not following a company policy, once I burn my leave, I haven't been terminated, but you're on leave without pay. Is that a policy consideration of management? I don't know, but I think it would be useful for us to at least understand what's the end game. What happens for non-compliance, right? Because, I mean, just walking in today, I had 2 employees say, hey, what about this and that I heard at the meeting, right? So you and I know, we all know that this policy you and Miguel are developing with your team, your employees are going to want to know what does it say, how does it impact me, and if I have questions, I need to talk to somebody, the commission, John B., somebody, right? And so I want to be prepared. I think we need to show them something in writing.
Yeah, there's a process for all of that within the personnel rules and regulations. So there'll be a process that they will also be communicating with us to address that concern. So hopefully we come to an agreement, a medium, and move it forward, or we take additional actions as necessary as granted.
Right. So what I'd be interested in is
progressive discipline.
Correct. So what I'd be interested is, what is the ultimate progressive discipline that either manager is proposing they would undertake if we were to adopt this, if we were to adopt mandatory testing, and is it only for non-vaccinated? Is it for all employees, right? At least I'd like you to think about that, because I don't believe it's accurate to say just because you're vaccinated, you can't catch it. And our concern is if anyone catches it, vaccinated or not, we don't want to spread it, right? But I don't know if it's accurate to say only non-vaccinated people will get it. We can have a vaccinated person come into work, or us, or the public. And, you even have communities debating, show me your shot before you can come to my restaurant, or go watch a play, or, everyone's wrestling, as you said, we're all trying to figure it out, right? So my understanding from Tuesday's meeting was there was a lot of these types of questions, and you're raising some more. And as I reflected from Tuesday's meeting to today's meeting, that was one of the issues that also emerged for me, is we're presuming only non-vaccinated people can catch COVID.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that's an accurate presumption.
Okay. There's another thing, though, that we did discuss at Tuesday. I don't know, maybe I was the one bringing this forward, and I may not have been heard, but I had suggested that we change the resolution to be a resolution that empowers the general managers to develop the policy. I don't know if you remember that. That would give us time to review a policy, but it would just, it would be the starting point of saying you're directed to develop a policy. That would start the process, because it's a long process. And I would tell you that once you go down the road, we're going to want to review it. And we have a lot of time before October 1st. And I would also like to ask that, when you bring this forward, I'd like to have you bring the science forward, because I heard a lot of what Commissioner Sanchez said, but I've also heard a lot of people talking who are the scientists. This is the people locally, like Dr. Wen, the governor's advisors. I don't know how you term them, but the ones who are advising her on the health and the science side of this. and also on the national level, the people who are putting out the advice. And while it is correct that even if you're vaccinated, you can contract COVID, but it seems to be, what I've heard is the majority of people, if they're vaccinated and they're contracted, they don't develop a real illness. In other words, it doesn't make them that sick. And that's the part I think I'd like to ask you and Miguel to do, is go look at the science. Bring that to us so that we can know. We make statements like, well, you can both get COVID if you're vaccinated. That's true. But there's a difference, because what I hear from locally and from the national science people is that if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to severely get ill and get hospitalization and die. So in other words, you can still get it, you can still spread it too. I've heard that from the national and the local people. But if everybody's vaccinated, it seems to me, what I remember hearing from the local and the national people, is that the people who are in the hospitals and the people who are experiencing severe health issues are those who are unvaccinated.
So
There are a few that are maybe vaccinated, and that's why I'm saying, I suggest that we direct you to start working on the policy, and I would like you folks to go and dig the science up, so that when we go through this, you can say, here, this is the science. This is what the scientists say at the national level. This is what our scientists say here on Guam. These are the people we turn to give our leaders advice as to what to do. We're also in a position of leadership, so we need to look at somebody who has the background and the science who can give us this. That's the thing I suggested that day to Tuesday. I believe I said that. I may be wrong. And because I think it's important that if you're going to establish a policy, you have to go all the way down, all the way to why you're trying to do that. What does the science say? What are you trying to prevent? What are you trying to improve? Okay, so that's all. The other thing is, the only other note I would have is, I think also that day on Tuesday, we talked about if we ever got to the point where we had a policy and we said you had to do testing, whether you're testing everybody or just testing some of the people. I think there was a question, and I want you to hear this, as to, will GPA cover the cost of the testing? I think that was brought up also. That, so I want you to hear, because you weren't here on Tuesday. So I want you to hear I'm trying to remember all the different things that we did bring up. So I think the commissioners kind of expressed an interest in having the utilities pay for the testing, that we didn't feel it was right to say, well, if you don't want a vaccine, you have to be tested every week, and you have to pay for the test. And I think that's one of the things. So there are a lot of those different things, and that's why I'm encouraging you, talk to Miguel. I would say revisit the resolution. It should be one that empowers you to do something, but you have to bring back a lot of things to us as we go through the process before we adopt the actual policy. Okay? Commissioner Martinez.
Yes, just thank you, Chief Chairman. John, first of all, thank you for wanting to do something like this. GPA, it's really something. And I thank you for that. Anyway, the rest, I don't think this is all. The resolution also in the last workshop with Guam Waterworks was to, under now be it resolved, I believe, I think Simon kind of mentioned number 2, that we just GPWA management shall immediately develop and implement a mandatory vaccination policy, period. And so that is already, if we adopt this on Tuesday, then that gives you all the authority to do it. But the other thing I want to thank you also is that you already got some good outlines there. Just listening on all the things that should be and should not be and all this other stuff. The commissioners have expressed some of their concerns. So I think it's going to be easier enough for you to take those and sit with your group and say, okay, with HR and everybody, we want to put this whole policy together and bring it out. I can see already that you're way ahead of that, and at least you have an outline. And I think you should share something with Miguel and see how can you mirror the two agencies to work that out. The only thing that I was a little bit listening to you was, of course, you and Guam Water Works has different HR rules and regulation. I don't know how do you want to put it. It's almost like asking to make things standard. When you come before the commission, I would ask, where's that difference in HR? And we can't do this because of that. Well, we can't do that because of this. So I just want to share that with you. That's all. Thank you. Okay.
Regarding Commissioners, we'll work on all the questions and thoughts and then prepare for.
Anything
We'll
else?
give it a shot Tuesday, see what we have and discuss it further.
And, you know, if we still have
Yep.
questions,
Yep.
if we have still more questions, you know, we could table this too.
Yep. We'll
I'm
do
just
that.
saying, you know, there's a lot on this. There's a
It's
lot
a
to
very
do here.
difficult.
It's a very
It's a
important.
tough call. Not everyone's going to be happy no matter what decision you
Yeah.
make. We try to do the best for our employees and our ratepayers.
Okay. Moving along, let's move to the budget.
Thank you,
We heard
Mr. Chair.
from GWA's budget plans, so now your budget plan.
Right, GPA Resolution 2021-23, relative to adoption of a budget for Guam Power Authority for fiscal years 2022 and 2023.
Okay.
We come before you today to present a request that instead of doing this every year annually, which we go through, it's a whole sequence of processes, that we go through a 2-year budget, both in O&M and CIP. Of course, as the Commission is aware, every month we provide a summary of our budget versus actuals. And things may change within the first year, if you will. But if it does and doesn't require any significant budget changes, then our budget is still that budget. As long as you have done in the past, you have authorized us to transfer within the operation area, but not transfer from operation to manpower. And so, consistent with all of that, it allows us also, because the process is such as we get the CC approval, we load up the budget for the year. In the CIP, we have to go an extra step to get the PUC approval for the CIP. So by the time we really get rolling and then start the process to bid and get all the things that we need to get done, it's time to re-roll in the budget. And then what happens is that even those that are not finished, we try to carry over, or it has to be re-justified with the new items that that our team sees may be a priority at this point. So every year, for example, CIP, and that's not a bad thing, but we usually approve 25 million, but that 25 million starts at 80 million as will come in from the budget process. So by having a 2 year, let's go to CIP right now, even like a minimum the CIP budget, then we're able to get more with the intention in mind that we would not spend more than the cap that is approved by yourself and the PUC, which typically is about 25 million expenditure for that fiscal year. Because again, CIP is driven by cash, and stuff. But the 2 year budget, for example, here in 2022 and 23, the CIP total is to about 55 million, which again is still around the 25 million per year average, no? The O&M, if you see, I think, and John will, has the prior years and the numbers. We only put the 22 proposed and 23 within the Exhibit A, but John has a presentation that shows the other years as he compares. So there's no real significant movement in all the other portions, and it's been that way for several years. No, part of it is that again, the infrastructure has matured throughout the years, and so we continue to invest in them, of course, but it's not as critical we do take care of the urgent ones immediately as the first priority in the budget, but again, you will see that the numbers don't really swing that much from one year to another. I would note that we have adjusted our revenue projection to be more in line with what it was from the pandemic on, although we're seeing that it's conservative because there is growth already that is occurring, as you can see from the monthly GM report. So you see us still be down in the 156 million base rate revenue, 160 in 2023. So again, we're just growing it in, and there's a lot of growth going on out there. So we anticipate that this revenue will be again exceeded, but we're capping it ourselves. And if there's any significant issues that come up that requires us to expand and readjust our budget as necessary, similarly to what we did with the Jigu CT, where we had to find $5 million to replace that turbine, then we will do that, and of course we come to the commission to get their approvals at that time, anything significant. But other than that, it's really just a process in getting the procurement going and doing all of that. So the debt service coverage, again, you see it as 1.32, 1.3, but we always come in above that, based on our revenues, and if necessary, we do cut our expense to make sure that happens. What we've added in this year's, more particularly in this year's and the next year's budget, is about $1 million in labor for what we call interns. The issue, as you recall, as you're aware, the 50% of our employees will be eligible for retirement within the next 5 to 10 years. So if we wait until they retire, then try to pick up that expertise, we usually end up having to pick up personnel without the utility experience. So what we're thinking with this is like we do in the apprenticeship program, it's established on a contractual level, some interns, through a process that will now work within the utility. They're not full-time employees, but they will gain that utility experience, so that as the retirements do occur, they also, like everybody else, can apply for this position. But of course, they now have utility experience and understanding. So if they're the best to be hired and are hired, then the utility doesn't go back. And we're addressing, because there's a lot of retirement, you're going to, the trend is you're going to head down. So by doing this and trying to alleviate that, that's what we're planning to do with the 1 million. And as you can see, there's already 1.9 there in this process, approximately 1.9, I believe, for the 40 some apprentices that we have under T&D, which is a very specific 4-year program. And they're again under contractual. They don't get to be full-time employees until they pass the final examination. So that, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is my
John?
my request, and,
I just
John
wanna
can
start
go
with
through the
one.
presentation, or if you want to look through it
No,
and discuss it
No,
later.
that's all good, John. I like your thinking in terms of making sure that you have the right employees at the right time and anticipating retirements. That's all good. I just wanted to go back to John Kim. When I look at your revenues, now, the 2020 revenues, that the revenue that came out from the audit?
Yes.
What, your operating revenues are 435,250, then it was made up of your base rate revenues of 163,763 for 2020. I'm just asking.
Yes, the base rate on the next slide. So yes, for fiscal year 20, this is the base rate was 156. So
No, but I'm
that's-
looking at this slide on
Page 7.
page 7.
One before. Put in the budget.
Keep going.
That one.
There you go.
Yeah. So if I look at your slide, I'm trying to figure out, we're all looking and saying, I think the big thing is we're wondering what consumption's going to be like. How many how many kilowatt hours can we sell? So I'm trying to figure out your FY 2020. We had an audit done on FY 2020 already, right?
Yes.
So the audited numbers for FY 2020, what is your existing base rate revenue?
Yes, existing base rate revenue for FY 2020
Uh-huh.
was $156 million.
156. So
yes.
then why is it say 163?
That was the approved budget back in 2020.
Okay.
Yes,
So John, I would tell you that when we get to the meeting next week,
yes,
I think my suggestion would be to put down the 2020 numbers.
2020
And-
actuals.
Yeah, the actuals.
Okay,
So
look
that,
at it.
so that we can, because if you tell me it's 156, you said? What is that number you just said?
Yes, 156. Yeah, 156.
156, 156 million. See, that's going to lead me to wonder about your where you're going to end up for FY '21, whether you're going to have 155 million.
Yes.
In other words, are you going to sell that much kilowatt hours?
Yes.
I guess to be really good at this, we really should look at your FY 2019 number. Because FY 2020
Yes.
had the impact of COVID, right?
Yes, that's what
Okay.
happened. Yes.
So, what I'm trying to say is, for the commissioners to look at this, I know every commissioner is going to be looking at,
Yes.
okay, what was your actual for 2020?
Yes.
What do you think you're going to do for 2021, and that's going to end in September 30th?
That's why I presented that slide.
Okay, this is a different one.
Yeah. So what happened
It's the same one, just
This is more of a thought process. We were going to
Okay.
give you the first page was give you what we budgeted and what we expected to come in.
Okay.
And the details.
So there's the
to
actuals.
provide support
Okay.
of how we came out with our projections for 2022 and 23. For base revenue, back in 2020, we budgeted 163, but during that time in February and March, and COVID hit Guam, and the
So you
sales
act-
went down. So we end up at 2020 156. In 2021,
Well,
we
John,
were-
John, just a minute. See, to me, these are the kind of numbers I need to see, because
Yes.
then it's going to tell me what happened. You sold, you grossed 160 in 2019. When
Yes.
2020, which ended last September 30th, right?
Yes.
And had COVID effect from March on,
Yes.
7 months, I think.
Yes.
Then what that says is you still sold a lot of kilowatt hours to gross the 156. There wasn't a drop-off, a
Yes.
steep drop-off.
Yes.
And so therefore, 155 projected, I can kind of understand for 2021.
Yes.
And now I need you to bring us the number that shows how you're tracking for 2021.
Yes.
In other words, will you make the 155?
Yes.
And then now I can say, okay, I have confidence in 2022 and 2023 going forward.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So
I don't know.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez is better at this than I am.
Yes. So
But
what we
I think
did,
that's what we're looking for.
Yes. So what we projected was when we budgeted 2021, we predicted the base revenue is going to be close to 155.
Uh-huh.
We're more projecting close to 155
Okay, that's what the adjusted and the projected are on this slide right here.
Okay, okay.
Yes. So, well, what we're thinking is for
Oh, I see.
2023, we're still in a pandemic mode, and we're gonna be closer to 2021 number. So we put 156. And for 2023, we were thinking that by that time, hopefully, all the business will be back to normal, and we'll be hitting pre-pandemic period, which is fiscal year 2019.
Okay.
So we put it at 160,800,000.
Okay.
So that was the logic behind it.
Okay, Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I share a similar observation as the chairman, and, budgets are guesses.
Yeah.
Actuals are real.
Yes.
Right? So can you reformat this to show, I don't care what we approved as a budget for
Yes.
FY20. I want to know, what did we do? Because, we can be good budgeters or bad budgeters. And life, it's an educated guess. And
Yes.
and all of us that had a business plan in February of 2020 realized in March of 2020 we weren't going to hit projections.
Yes.
So, right, so life intervened. So if you could reformat this, if it's okay with the commission.
Sure.
To have actual 20, I guess, is projected 21 where you
Right.
think we'll be as of August FY21? We're almost at the tail end,
Yes.
right? So again, I don't care what we budgeted. I'm more interested, what's the reality
Yes.
we're dealing with? So you would have actual 20, projected 21, and
Yes.
then we can kind of see how does your proposal for 22 and 23 compare to the actuals, right?
Okay, sure.
So I share the same observation as the chairman, and then I just want to make sure I also am doing this piece right. If you look at your projected 2021, right? Your net earnings is going to just a little bit south of, we'll call it 5 million, just to keep the math simple,
Yes.
yeah? And then in that 5 million is almost 39 million of depreciation, right?
Yes.
Okay, again, just to keep the math simple.
Yes.
So normally, you would take the 5 million in profit, add back the depreciation, and that would take you to about 44 million, right?
Yes, that's
Then if you go to the next page, in FY 2021, our debt service is 47 million. So we only have $44 million in cash to pay the 47 million,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? So where are you gonna get that 3 million in cash? From our reserves?
It's from our reserves. Yes.
Okay, so, it looks like you're forecasting, and your guess is probably as good as anybody's, that we will have some earnings, but from a cash flow point of view, the depreciation is not as large as the principal and interest of the debt service, right?
Yes.
And then if you look at 22 and 23 and you do the same exercise, you're thinking we might lose a couple million, then you add back depreciation, and then you subtract debt service.
Yes.
Are you projecting a negative cash impact in 22 and 23?
Yes, that is
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
We provided
What
a
is
cash
that?
flow statement
It's a net
in
earnings.
the
Where's
back.
that at?
It's in the board book. It's the attachment,
do you know what page?
Exhibit A.
That's on the bottom. So 1.7 and
Right, right. When I add
2.9.
back depreciation, subtract debt service.
Yes.
And the cash is a negative.
Yes, they will have, if you,
So then my question is, where are you gonna get that? Where does the company get the cash to cover?
yes.
And because you gotta write those checks for debt service. You're writing all these checks.
Yes, we are.
Right? You're not writing a check for depreciation, but that's usually your principal equipment, right?
Yes.
Because you have interest in here already, right?
Yes.
I'll wait, but this on slide 8, that 47 million is principal and interest? Right? Or is that just the
Yes.
principal portion?
Yeah, that includes principal and interest.
All right, so do me a favor then. Okay, now then you're not gonna run a negative, right? Because your interest is in here.
That's correct.
On page 7, your interest is in the budget, correct?
That should make up majority of your debt service, right? John, is your interest? Majority of that number is interest.
Yeah, the majority are, yes, the majority are interest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can you just,
what is-
we asked Holling to do the same thing. Can you just revise this to show us the cash impact after net earnings?
Yes.
Of paying the principal?
Yeah, I'll put the cash flow statement.
Yeah, either another slide or down below.
Yes.
And if you're gonna run a negative, it happens, right?
Yes.
Especially in this funky time.
Yes.
But the next question is, depending on that negative, how are you funding the negative? Because I know, I'm with you, you're trying to keep that base rate as, you don't want to touch the base rate, right?
Yes.
And the base rate is a matter of kilowatt hour sales, as the chairman points out, right? And
Yes.
we're guessing what kilowatt hours sales will be, only because it's difficult to predict tourism's return, right? And that had the most adverse impact on your revenues, right?
Yes.
So, if we're gonna look ahead 2 years for a budget,
Yes.
if you could just help complete the picture with
Yes.
the cash flow piece that shows that after you account for principal
Yes.
payments, then what is your cash impact? Is it still positive? Because normally that positive impact is what you fund your internal CIPs, right?
Yes.
And if it's not large enough as we budget, then you cut back on your internal CIPs because you can only spend what actually comes in, right? So I just want to make sure, because you're asking us to approve a 2-year budget.
Yes.
And I want to kind of, as I think all the colleagues are saying, we just want to make sure what we're looking at, if we're going to look 2 years ahead.
Yes.
I'd like to see at least the cash impacts. I see the coverage. That's good. And of course, we all know, there's nothing stopping us, the next meeting after we approve the budget, to come in and make a change, right? When COVID hit, we changed the budget.
Yeah.
Right? So this is just a budget so management can proceed with a spending authorization based on that budget. If the good Lord or the planet Earth intervenes and changes that, then we adjust.
Adjust again.
Right? But yeah, if you could just complete that picture for us.
Yes, it's in the back, supporting documents, but I'll put it in the highlights so it's easy to see.
Yeah, just
Yes.
just a summary. You're very good at summarizing this stuff. I like your slides. Just do a complete picture of, all right,
Yes.
slide, page 7
Yes.
is almost there. Show us the cash impact, and if it's negative, are you taking it out of reserves? Are you cutting back on CIPs? John likes to have 25, 30 million, but if in FY 22 and FY 30, or 23, we're already predicting we're going to be negative, then his 25 becomes 15.
Yes.
I mean, that to me is useful information, not
Yes.
to us and particularly to you guys.
Yes. So
Because-
you're correct. It will be we will have slight cash negative on those 2 periods, but we will still have about 45 in 2022 and $34 million in 2023 in hand. So yes.
Positive cash flow, or
We'll have, so we're using,
how are you funding the negative?
so we are previous cash we have in the bank.
Okay.
Working capital.
And you would still spend 25 million a year in CIP?
We calculated, so if there's no carryovers, if we spend $32 million in 2022 and $22 million in CapEx in 2023, by end of fiscal year 2023, we still have about $34 million cash in the bank.
Okay, so, so if you can just help pull that together, because I see the proposed CapEx. So you're saying you can, using your cash reserves to fund the cash negative because sales are still soft, right?
Yes.
Because of COVID. I'm looking now on page 13, is that the CapEx, the internally financed CapEx that John is hoping to spend?
Yes.
In coming years, the 32 million and the 22 million on page 13, the last 2 columns on the right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So another source of cash is if you're short 5 million, he spends 27 million in 22 and not 32 million.
Yes, yes.
So I just want to make sure you understand those dynamics, that we're approving a budget that you can cover.
Yes.
And if you're going to sacrifice, we need to know from where are you sacrificing. Traditionally, it's come out of this CIP, internally financed CIPs that you're listing on page 13, and I just want to confirm, is that how you're thinking about it, or are you still going to spend this much and you'll pull it out of cash reserves? Just so we understand it, because you're asking us to approve the budget, and you're asking us to approve a 2-year budget. Right?
Yes. Yes, we will do that.
And you can, John, you can give us, when you go through this, when you've got it ready, maybe Monday even, you can email it to us, just so we can start looking at it.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And when we go through it, we'll go through it again on Tuesday night. Because,
We'll try and provide it before Saturday, then at least the
yeah,
commission
if you
can have
can,
the
that
time.
would be good, we could take a look at it. Or
It won't
Monday.
take us long, we have all the numbers.
If we don't pass the budget till
Yeah.
September, I mean, as long as you know October 1 what you're authorized to do, the world goes
Yeah.
on. So, but I'm with the chairman, if we can do it Tuesday, we'd like to resolve it.
Yeah, we'd like to resolve it.
And,
But that would help us.
But that analysis helps us understand the budget we're approving.
Yes.
Sorry, is there, anybody else have any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, John,
Uh,
what's next?
thank you, Mr.
You have
Chair.
an update for us, or?
Let's go to the hard ones.
Okay.
The hard one? The hard one is which one? Oh,
I'm teasing.
I'm sorry.
These are the easy. Those two are easy, right? Look, it only took us.
If I may make a switch, Mr. Chair, may I do the,
Discussion.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
the solar?
Yes, let's do
Yeah, and then, because that is more just a statement from myself, no?
Sure.
Or from what I think from the team.
Sure.
And then we go back to the other one.
Yeah.
Again, the 60 megawatt scale solar PV, and of course there's the commission are interested in finding out what's going on, what are the things, how does it impact us and the ratepayers, no? And in this scenario, I perceive that that is. So again, this is a contract that power purchase agreement in 2018 to purchase renewable energy, no? And again, KEPCO is responsible for construction, operation, and maintenance, and retains ownership of the facility at the end of the agreement. So this is a power purchase agreement, not the IPP agreement, that a model that is for the new power plant. The new power plant, after 25 years, they transfer. So we own the facility, and therefore, for the next 25 years or so, continue to operate and maintain it. Bring in a PMC to operate and maintain it, but we no longer pay a capacity fee. With our strategy behind the power purchase agreement is, utility solar PV is evolving, right? So there's still other issues, including down the road. How do you get rid of the panels, the batteries, or the environmental issues involved with that? So, to me, it's not in our best interest to jump into ownership. Although potentially there could be some economies of scale or reduction on the case, but there's still too much risk yet down the road. So this whole power purchase agreement is that structure. Is really, if they produce the energy, they have a minimum guarantee. This is the rate that we will pay them for the guarantee. And again, what else did they produce? And in this case, we want them to produce as much as they can, no? So that's the difference. So we have no responsibility for the plan, except that we want to encourage KEPCO to complete the project as soon as possible, because I'll show you the benefits as to what it means to the ratepayer. So again, they have to comply with all rules and regulations, no? That's their responsibility. As a result of the erosion incident, they have to mitigation costs for recent erosion, or anything beyond that does not impact the ratepayers. That's their responsibility. The amended commissioning date, as a result of COVID delays and all of that, I amended it to be May 2022. What we know from KEPCO is that they're on track for December 2021, which is the end of this year, commissioning. So they'll be starting on the line around November. Now, that may have changed a little bit, or hopefully just a little bit. And it appears to be that way if they can handle the erosion problem, no? Because this is not really the infrastructure issue, more than an after fact from the erosion, no? So it looks like potentially we're still going to be on track, and I hope we are towards the end of the year. Ratepayers will be substantially negatively impacted should the project be delayed, or worse yet, the project not successfully completed. No? So we have a vested interest to make sure that, for this plan to come on for us. The energy to be purchased from the facility will be cheaper than GPA's production fuel costs, And the ratepayers' LEAC savings is estimated to be about $49 million over the next 4 years. Now again, this could vary a little bit, plus or minus so and so, but depending on the operations, no? But again, this is the magnitude of the savings that is going to go. And I must stress that this goes directly to the LEAC. The solar PV is all LEAC. It doesn't impact the base rate or the revenues that we're talking about for, the operations, the labor, and all of that. This is a direct savings, goes right to the ratepayers, no? Just like the $15 million grant that we received from the governor. That goes to pay the ratepayers' cost for fuel, no? So again, this is so how did I come up with that number? Next year, 2022, again, if you stay at the level of fuel oil costs today, around say, the recent for ultra low sulfur diesel, it's about $95 a barrel. The average, since the Cabot 3 and 4 explosion, about 20 to 30% of our energy is generated by the standby units, the combustion turbines, all of the non-base load units, no? And they average as a system about 11 kilowatt hours per gallon. So therefore, the average cost based on $95 barrel is about, where is that number? It's about 20.56 cents a kilowatt hour. So what do the new renewables offset? The majority is going to offset this cost. So if it's at 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour that we're going to buy it for, offsetting the 20 cents, so it's 30 million minus the contract which we're going to buy for 12 million because they're going to produce a guaranteed minimum of 149 million kilowatt hours for the year, no? So that's a saving of about 17.9 million the first year. Now that blends in quite well with, not blend in, but that's a welcome relief considering that our LEAC is going to be up there around 17 because of the high fuel prices. So what you see for projection for the next LEAC period of 17 could come down now if this thing came on the line, right? So again, that's, there has not been any of these discussions up to, because that's on the next LEAC period from February to August, right? So just to roll through the next 4 years that I mentioned, in the second year, say the barrel per oil went down to 85, which is typically what it's been in the past, no? So therefore, it becomes 18.4 cents. Again, the contract, remember this contract is only 1% escalator per year. So it's a very small change. So for the same amount of energy, approximately 1.48 million, now it's 12.7, again, just like. So therefore, the savings is 14.4 in the second year. The third year, again, is going to be a combination of that plus base load. And remember, the base load in 2023 is going to cost a little bit more because we're going to use 0.2% sulfur, an ultra low sulfur diesel at PD, right? So therefore, the savings is about 7.2.
John, why does it drop again? We do 17, 14, and then it cuts in half. I'm trying to make sure I understand that.
The drop is, what is it offsetting? For the first 2 years, it's going to be the
current base
non-base loads, right? The base loads, and then
the new base load steps in.
In the third is really going to be the base load in 2024, because what happens in 2024, the new power plant comes on.
And it's more efficient.
More efficient, right?
So the savings is
That's
less.
right. So what are you going to be offsetting? When the new power plant comes on in 2024, 2025, it's really going to be them for the majority of the production, and some from the non-base load. So even if I took the best case, which will be PD 8 and 9, if we retain it, and they generate only the balance of it, right? This is what the number comes out to. See, So that's why it goes down from
So
7.
the new generator, because it's more fuel efficient,
Right.
I'm not saying it's a penalty, but it too is offsetting our fuel expense because
That's
it's
correct.
burning less fuel because it's more efficient.
Right.
and therefore the amount of the offset that a utility scale solar plant like the Marble one does, that's the reason. It's offsetting less fuel because it's competing against a more fuel efficient base load, being the new generator we're building up at Ukadu, right?
That's
And-
correct.
And that
So
explains the
eventually,
drop.
this savings will stabilize, so somewhere maybe about $4 or $5 million a year going forward, no?
But you
Because-
still realize the savings, it's not coming from the solar plant, right? Because your GPA production fuel amount goes
You're
down.
still
7
getting a lot
million.
of savings, you're correct. But this is compared between here and what's going to be generated. But if you look at the total reduction in cost, you see that, the rate went up to maybe 15, 16, and when, in the 24, then after that, the average LEAC dropped to 11, 10, and 9, no? So you're correct in that. It's just that within the generation mix, the impact becomes less, but it's still a savings. And then it's not subjected to huge swings in fuel oil, and it's a 1% escalator. So it starts to help stabilize the rate, no? So again, this is the number. So again, this is why, we just want to mention, and of course you're aware of this, as to what the impact is. So what's the value of this plan coming on the line? No? Okay, I think that's next. Do you think? The erosion incident. We have some information from GEPCO. This is what kind of a timeline, the notice of violations occurring, and of course, who's in the stream, even penalties from EPA, Contractors Licensing Board. The Attorney General has sued the facility, and I think there's another
The landowner now has sued.
landowner sued. So I guess all of those things will get settled, and let's just hope that none of it breaks the facility. And I think that, there's a lot of investments made, and if they're that close to coming on the line, keeping my fingers crossed that all goes
The
well.
only way they're going to get their money back is to
That's
produce
right.
energy
It's
so they
just
can buy it.
So we're committed, and we're interested to get this thing on the line and start buying the energy and saving the ratepayers a lot of money. Next. Again, these are some of the things that were issued as a notice of violation, and here on the right is the status that was done. So I won't really go through all of this, Commissioners, but it's here available for your information. Next. And again, they have indicated to us that, officially, that they're trying to get everything on the line by December, commissioning by December of this year. No?
John, the only other thing I want to have you kind of put back before us so that we can remember it is we were also expecting the 60 megawatt down in La Zone to kick on. When is that?
Right now, Mr. Chair, that's 2023. the end of
2023,
December.
okay.
That's, correct.
No, I'm just saying that, as this goes forward, you showed us the savings from this one plant coming on.
Right.
You're going to have another plant coming on a year later, maybe a whole year and a little bit more than a year later, but you're going to have more savings.
Right.
The same thing is going to affect. And then when 2024 comes and you put on the new power plant, then that all kind of kicks together, and that's when you can start turning off the old generators and really saving money.
And it's my understanding from your earlier presentation that even after the projects the chairman has just mentioned in phase, we have that one project under protest, but there's a phase 4. And from what I saw, you're looking at almost 300 megawatts of utility scale solar is being planned. I mean, the IRP I know will come out. We'll all get a chance to review that. But the goal of, we used to not be so sure about 50%, we've become increasingly confident that we can get to 50%, and I'm hearing you talk about time horizons like 2030, 2035. I still remember with Speaker Pangilinan, we were praying for 25% by 2035. With what GPA is doing now, we may be at 50%. We may double the goal that was originally set by Senator Pangilinan, and that's why we worked with Senator Shelton to move the number up. You know, now the new policy goal is 100%, and we'll can't get to 100 till you get to 50. And I'm hearing increasing confidence from GPA and the team that using utility scale solar, whatever rooftop might be available, but the fastest way to get to 50% of our energy coming from renewable energy will be to implement similar utility scale size solar projects throughout the island. It's going to be the fastest way to lower the power bills reliably for our ratepayers. When you combine the utility scale solar and the new generator at Ukadu, the savings will really begin to emerge for our ratepayers, which is really what we're all trying to do, is to give them the energy they want at the lowest possible cost and reliably.
And sustainability, so that we're not impacted as significantly like we are today by the erratic fuel oil rises in prices. 50% of it will be subjected, the rest is kind of, it's like a hedge, right?
Yeah, it's the best hedge. Just like you're saying, 50%, by 2030, half our energy might still be coming from fuel that'll do this.
Yeah.
The other half of our energy might be coming in at 9, 10, 11 cents, which is lower than the LEAC now, is lower than the upcoming LEAC. In fact, one thing that I believe is true that you can work on researching, if we take the average LEAC for the last 20 years, I believe the solar contracts are lower than, because I think we used to average about 13 cents a kilowatt hour LEAC up and down. You know, we've had 8s and we've had 18s, right? But that would be, it'd be interesting to compare the last 20 years of average LEAC pricing, which we all have gone through with all the erratic nature of oil, and compare it to these fixed price utility scale solar contracts that are being awarded and that we expect to award. And as you've said, all the future utility solar projects will continue to become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because of the technology that's evolving. You know, our first solar farm, we're paying 19, 20 cents for Dunban. We're now getting bids at 9, 10, 11 cents in 7, 8 years later. And that's right.
11 cents.
And now we're getting those bids with batteries. So some folks have advocated, let's go to 100% solar now, ignoring the fact that it would be far more expensive to do 100% solar now than to migrate the way we're doing it to take advantage of the technology costs continuing to fall. And meanwhile, but to keep the lights on, because even at 50%, the other 50%'s got to come from something. That's what the new power plant will produce for us, but it will produce that 50% energy at significantly lower cost than the Cabris units that it's replacing. And 2 of the Cabris units, we were able to actually get insurance proceeds for ratepayers of about $120 million, which is helping to reduce the cost of the new generator that's being built in Ukadu. So it's really a nice merging of savings for ratepayers that when this is all done in 2024, 25, and by 2030, there will be significant savings available to ratepayers over time as we try to get to 50% of our energy coming from renewable energy by 2030. It's the fastest way to lower the power bill for ratepayers is the utility scale solar that we're doing.
I would like to know that the question is, okay, how do we make utility scale cheaper? No, of course, technology and economics are the evolvement. No, is starting to bring that price continually bringing that price down. Right, but at some point, it's going to level off.
Right.
So the one thing, all of this 8.5 cents that we have includes major significant infrastructure, transmission line upgrades that are associated and we're paying for because we're going to own that, right? So in the near future, now we'll be looking to upgrade and loop the 115, and I'm sure the commissioner is aware, right? This is what we're trying to do. by doing that, anywhere in the island you can hook up without having that significant transmission. Some good news is that maybe this infrastructure bill that is coming out has money for transmission. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that and work with the administration to see whether we can get some of that money to upgrade the 115 transmission, because it's going to cost us maybe anywhere 80 million or so to do that. But if we can get
the
help
upgrade.
with that, that'll be great. Then that now will bring more the utility scale below even the conventional unit. No? So that's what we're hoping
That's the
for,
big
and
picture.
things are folding into place. No? So that's all I have, Mr. Chair, on this
Okay,
thing.
go back to your agenda. You have anything else?
One last thing, I think, Mr. Chair, and then we can go to the general manager's report. No, I'm sorry, the one DOE.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So what I have before you again, Mr. Chair, is in our last discussion, in the last board meeting, the commission wanted to see an MOA, or MOA. We decided on a MOA. And so what I've done is we provided you a draft that I've given to Superintendent Fernandez to look at. And, I did get some initial comments today on the draft, which basically seems like it's workable. There'll be some discussions, just more understanding issues like how do we handle protests of all of that. Again, what are some of my other. And I'll provide this information, just came through. He did write to me today as I requested to discuss on this. So again, it's really to handle federal funds from DOI, FEMA, and the American Rescue Plan, and also adding, of course, that the AG approved the MOA. So again, for your information, I have the information from Superintendent Fernandez today. At least understanding that I have given the commission the MOA as a starting point for the discussion. So we're also having a Zoom meeting with him tomorrow, and so we can go through other issues on this. And then, of course, I'll bring that back to yourselves, and if the commission wants to make the decision next week, Tuesday, then I welcome that, so we can either move on this or, decide what to do. But again, the MOA that I provided includes the scope of work. And again, the scope of work, again, we're really going to assist in the engineering and management service for implementing their maintenance and in the CIP programs. Again, Simon Sanchez, looking at the facilities, maybe incorporating some of the issues that we talked about, including the man-side management programs, different projects, trying to see whether there's a fit with some of this money to implement, what the studies were done. Work with their planners, Corps of Engineers, it's SF group planners to, they're going out there making their CIP assessments, doing all of that. By working directly with, say, our team, it's easier to really come to, okay, we should do this, that kind of stuff. How do we, there's a relatable discussion that can easily come to quick decisions and then come to the process and procurement solutions of how to best get this project out on a bid and get it done and and implement it. And then furthermore, like I mentioned in our issue in the MOA, really, we want to try and find a sustainable program for maintenance for the superintendent. Of course, he has to approve all of this because he's the responsible party. We're his consultants, if you will, And therefore, so that in the future, they have similar to what we have had with a PMC or something that provides all of this expertise to assist them to look for grants, CIP. And if you recall, even our PMCs in the past have included some form of financing. Cameras Power Plant, we will do $20 million overhaul, and we will pay for it over a 5-year period. So therefore, you could have CIP programs that cost this much. The return is, payback is 2 years. You spread out, let them put the investment in, get the return, DOE saves money. You know? So this is the type of things that, from a management perspective, the engineering perspective, from our expertise in procurement, consolidation or isolation, instead of doing one facility at a time, maybe do it all, the same type of work, maybe break it out to maybe several contractors, depending on who's the low bidder or overall, So things like that could help expedite this. So again, this is what we're talking about, anywhere from about $250 to $420 million worth of projects. Next, sorry, Mr. Noma's done. And again, this is what we're trying to do with them. It's a partnership, not just as an owner. It's like, there's got to be a GDOE GPA partnership, with the vision in mind to get the schools to a long-term solution, a sustainable solution. The next, I think that's it, right? Again, we have already provided, spent $500,000 for energy efficiency projects. So say spend $41 million, you save $4.5 million a year.
10-year payback.
Right? We continue to provide monitoring for the schools. We got grants for them and all that. So that's what I am, Mr. Chair. I did give the MOA.
Commissioner Chaco.
So any.
Commissioner Chaco.
So I was going to ask the question, John. Initially I recall this being kind of focused in scope to Simon Sanchez, but now it sounds as though it's taken on a much larger scope. It's not as defined as just assisting with Simon Sanchez. So I was going to ask, is there a finite timeline? And then I see in the actual MOA that it is a 5-year timeline, right? So the agreement is in place for 5 years, subject to termination by either party within 30 days. But it has language in there that says it can be renewed. So do you foresee this being a long-term thing?
No, I don't want it to be, Commissioner.
Yeah, okay.
And that's why with my intention, and I do make it known, and of course with the superintendent, we will make sure he understands that. We don't want to get involved in just going and putting A into, we want to find a long-term solution to assist the Guam DOE so that it can stand on its own. No? Mm-hmm. There's no reason really that there shouldn't be a reason for the superintendent to have to spend so much time on infrastructure and all of that. No? Especially when potentially there's a lot of savings that could cover the additional cost to put in the management team or the maintenance team that will provide them savings. And when they do that savings, it also means savings is direct, but the other indirect are the long-term less maintenance of the facilities, less light bulbs, less so and so, things that, it just compounds itself. So no, I don't plan to make this another career for our team. I really am looking at maybe within the 2 to 3 years to make sure that it does have a team, if not earlier, so that team that comes on board is something we can work with and make them now take over the needs of the superintendent. No?
So you foresee basically training their people and then them taking it over themselves?
I foresee either, and we may not, we're going to have to it's not necessarily this process because of the timeline. It's going to have some training portion of it, but it's really helping getting these projects on the ground, right? But at the same time, I want to try and get something that will bring the DOE to the future, working with either the management team or thing for Guam DOE education facilities, that we can work together and they can take over the rest of the balance of the work. So it's going to be a hybrid. We want to get into a hybrid situation and then get out on this, no? So that's the plan here. And until we start doing this, I don't know. I just have a vision of how to get this done, and part of it is there's been a concern, perhaps, that when you go through a performance management contract, or it's a privatization of all the maintenance of all of that. Potentially that could be one, but then potentially one that's also good for the existing employees because then they have a long-term project, right? But really, we have hybrid models. No one loses up. What we have is a management team working with the existing employees or future employees of Guam DOE, right? And from there, they get trained. They get the resources, and they get trained long-term so that they get the facilities up. Then you have a proud organization that gets things done very well. And Commissioners, when you compare what we're trying to do for DOE versus what we do to keep the lights on, it's, I don't want to say it's a vacation, but it's a lot more simpler. We just follow the process, and make it happen.
But it's still the question, how does it benefit GPA? Is it the anticipated funding sources that are going to allow you to hire more engineers, and these are people that you foresee coming online and replacing people that are retiring? I still want to understand how does it benefit GPA?
Okay, first of all, irrespective of whether I do this with DOE, we will be hiring some more engineers, whether through the internship or through regular, so I can train up because of the amount of capacity I'm going to lose over the next several years. And even importantly, there's a lot of senior capacity, that we have to so in the same time, them gaining experience utilizing those additional employees would be helpful, because the way we work now is it doesn't take us long to make decisions as to what needs to be done. And then the additional engineers that we have will now take our templates and begin to get trained as to how to do all of that. So there's a big economies of scale based on the way we can do this, So the benefit to GPA, of course, DOE is one of our large customers, right? The benefit, we're trying to reduce their costs, demand-side management programs, If we did that, it means that, again, the amount of fuel oil that we burn starts to go down. We can work with DOE perhaps on looking at their assets to utilize for more renewables, After, in my opinion, after you get through and fix the inefficiencies as best as you can. So it provides opportunities for us. And again, be it as it may, but we always get I don't know how much it really will say to that, but you always see, we go on public hearings as GPA, you will do this for DOE, but but that's not really a partnership. That's more, you will do this, you will put renewables, you will put all of this. No, in this partnership, my expectation is that we are gonna find the best solution. We're not just gonna do it, we're gonna say, here is our recommendation, no? And this is where the results will be. And so if we can do it that way, then we can move it forward. And if we cannot do it, we're going to recommend to John how to get that capacity to do it.
But you intend to finance these activities utilizing these funds that have been identified, right? This is not internally funded to GPA.
No.
You are
This
going
will-
to use these funds to pay for that capacity, so it doesn't have an impact financially on the utility because there's a funding source to help you accomplish this MOA.
Any federal fund or whatever has administration cost, no? That's included for that, no? So what we're doing really is, whenever our people work on this thing, it's really going to get reimbursed from that grant fund, no? Because whether they contract it out or have the government do it, it's the same. It's a cost for the project. So from everything I've seen in federal fundings and all of that, and of course we'll review this, we will be getting reimbursed for the work we do.
So that's my main concern, Mr. Chair, is that making sure that the ratepayers aren't being burdened with this extra work. If there's a way, and if these funds are what's going to fund the activity of helping DOE accomplish these goals, and it's not being borne by rates that are being passed on to our ratepayers, then I'm more comfortable with. I still don't think it's it's kind of like you're gonna hire contractors to do this work, right? Some of it, a lot of it. There's some of the engineers.
Or DOE is.
Yeah, but that's something that DOE could do on their own, right? They don't
They
need.
don't know what they're asking for.
No,
Right.
we're going to be the contracting agency.
the electrical
will be,
consultant for
Guam
DOE.
But it's
But we
way
will
past
be-
just
we will-
electrical.
no, but we will be the
It's a construction
engineers.
of an entire high school.
Right, but when you're building something,
Wait.
right, I mean, one of the most fundamental things in any construction design is how are you gonna get electricity through the facility? And that's what we're good at, and what I see is, this is a great debate, I mean, it's not even a debate. This is a one-time opportunity where DOE's got $170 million to touch their facilities. And to the degree we can use some of that money with our electrical expertise and say, when you touch Simon Sanchez or this school or that school, and with our expertise in electricity, and you do this, you will lower your demand for power. And actually, to me, the payback for ratepayers at a macro level is this. If DOE reduces its energy consumption by 15% through more efficiency, the next generator, the next solar farm, the next resource we have to have for capacity can be a little bit smaller because the aggregate demand from Guam, in this case DOE, who's a big user, is a little bit smaller, so that we don't have to, the next generator can be a little bit smaller. Look how we over time are replacing 4 units at Cabras. You add up their total capacity, we're replacing it with less capacity now because we mix a more efficient generator, we put in solar to help provide energy, and folks are look at the demand side management for air cons. People are buying those air cons because it reduces their power bill. And if Guam's aggregate energy demand reduces over 20 years, guess what? The people that succeed us, when they think of the next generator, maybe it's 10% smaller, 20% smaller, because Guam needs 20% less energy because we're much more efficient. So what I get excited about is DOE never gets a check for $170 million for facilities. If they're going to fix facilities, we should be helping them when it gets to the electrical part. Here's how we can help you when you fix your facility, reduce electrical. They still got to fix the facility. I think, to me, they're hiring the contractor that's fixing the things, but the plan that they're going to look at when it comes to the energy part of how do you make Simon Sanchez more energy efficient has been vetted by GPA and its expertise, and say, hey, whoever's designing the repair, who's ever designing the upgrade of a building, here's the electrical piece that we've done, put it in there, and get that $170 million to do the electrical part of it as efficiently as possible. That 170 is not all going to go to electrical, but they're going to do things to structures. Those structures have electricity within them, and to the degree we can help advise them whether it's air cons, whether it's solar, whatever it is, and just demand, that Siemens study says they can save $4 million a year in their power bill. But if we don't show them if we didn't do the Siemens study that we paid for, they wouldn't know that. But now we have a template to hand to them and their contractors, and we'll help them a little bit, 5-year increments. And my hope is that in 5 years, they got to learn to manage their facilities anyway. We're not here to run their schools, but to the degree we can take advantage of this one-time windfall of $170 million, where they can really do something with schools. If we can help them stretch that money with savings from how they consume electricity, the community wins. The long-term payback to ratepayers will be the future demand of the community is that much smaller because DOE isn't wasting that much of energy that we have to produce for, and we pay fixed costs for a generator that's this big. Maybe the future ones are 80% as big, 70% as big, because Guam gets more efficient.
Yeah,
That to me is the payback. The
You're correct, but in terms of just explaining about what we're going to do for them, in terms of the, again, like Mr. Extension, but also the engineering and management aspect of the procurement of all the specifications, and even when you go through the procurement, you have the questions and answers that have to be answered, right? Those are difficulties that they have as an organization now, because it's not their everyday type of scenario, or they don't have all the engineering or different specialties to help address the questions of the bidders, if you will. No? So they will contract, and really, as far as our operation and maintenance personnel, we're not doing much of anything. Maybe we might do a little bit, which is in the best interest of both parties. No, but it's really getting the packages out, making sure it's done correctly, and in the best interest of the DOE. That's going to be our role. Everything else will be paid from finance and everything from the fund, and then our hours and so will be financed also from the federal funds. So we won't be going out there and on the ground to the facilities unless it's something urgent or something that and we will get reimbursed anyway. But by having that expertise of bidding out questions and answers, having the teams, and this is where, if I need help from GWA, I will ask Miguel, and then of course we will reimburse that personnel for the different areas on the MOA. So that's the key here. Excuse me.
Okay. Okay.
So
Thank you.
So that's what I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, and again, we can discuss it more Tuesday. Or
John, you're always very brief with your GM reports.
Oh,
How brief can you be?
and I can leave it until Tuesday, Mr. Chair. I think I
Well, give us the
mentioned the
highlight.
first thing.
You know, John, your normal report has a lot of, monthly data.
How
and
about we
stuff.
do it, Mr. Chairman, like we did with
Yeah.
GWA? Is there anything
There you go.
significant in your GM report that you want to report to the commission?
Yeah,
I mean,
just
because
give
we
us
can
the
look at
highlight.
your kilowatt hours and the.
Okay, I'll quickly do it. Very
Sure.
quickly. Whoop, there's
You only
the-
have to be quick on
Okay.
the major stuff. If it's the
Again,
standard stuff, we can read
here's
through
your
it.
energy, gives you an idea, right? We're pushing towards the 2019 next. Here's your NEM.
John,
No,
Okay.
no change, right?
No
Not
change.
much
Right,
growth.
go.
Yeah,
Next.
just to highlight.
Here.
Oil sucks, okay.
Yeah, but look
Still sucks.
what's on the tail end.
Yeah,
It's
still
kind of big. So again, that could go like this, but again, that's the good news, at least for now. No, that hopefully that.
Okay, that's the big thing. Okay.
Yeah, that's the biggie.
the rest is.
Yeah, the rest we
same.
can review, and if we have questions, we can ask you.
We'll ask you on Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay?
Everything else is.
Okay.
Oh, and one, your internship for 23 engineering and total 23 with 5 cyber security and the balance engineering expertise.
Very good.
Students
These are engineering students at EOG and.
and other places, interns. So they're on board and working. So again, and we've been
you're getting
giving them the spiel about 60% of workforce retiring.
Yeah.
Please come back and
Yeah.
take the
Apply for a job.
Yeah.
take the lead because you're the future and this is your.
And you know, you're in the 61%, so the first 60 have to go before you go.
Well, anyway, I did give them an overview of the whole utility as where we're going.
This is the $1 million spend that you had
No,
mentioned?
no,
This is something different?
This is different.
Okay, but I did have a question. What does that translate into FTEs, or how many personnel, roughly?
Probably
That's
1
for
million,
T&D,
maybe
right?
40.
40 for, and that was for T&D?
No, it's different areas. We might need 2 or 3 for accounting because in the last, John, how many? 5, 8 people who were accounting
Or leaving or
left.
left?
Remember you started with
It's not
Cora?
you, is it, John?
Yeah. So, yeah. So what we're going to do is, bring in and train maybe 3, right? And so that they get the utility experience and capacity, and then as we open future jobs, then they can apply for it as a permanent FTE. So this is like the apprentice, they're like the 40. They're all contractual. They have to perform and all of that, and then the opportunity comes for them to be an FTE as the openings really, and in non-certain terms, the opportunity is there for them.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, John.
Sure.
I hope we get to use them for the DOE project partnership.
Potentially, this is where we start planting the seed, no?
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
The engineers that we bring you, let them, maybe one day they'll be working for DOE. The thing is that we begin to train them to start working towards their professional engineering degree, professional engineering certification. And with the team on board, and before we lose a lot of them, it'd be good to get the new crop of professional engineers into the, at least some more. No, not all will be PEs, right? But okay, Mr. Chair, that's it.
That it? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, we're adjourned.
Thank you. Good job. We'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you.